How are we, folks? I'm hoping this may be an introduction to either one episode or a short series on putting M-Series cab suspension in a 75/30 John Deere. Just getting the radio set up there because I do not work alone in silence. I always have the radio going. Don't know if it's a good habit or a bad habit. Probably not a good habit when you're filming, but I always have the radio going when I'm working away. Anyway, we have the tractor in the workshop now. Sorry, this is all new to me, walking backwards, holding a camera, holding my phone or whatever. We have her inside here now in the shed. Just cleaned a bit of a corner of the shed here. Made a bit of a makeshift bench. I'm gonna start weighing up what it's gonna take to put M-Series suspension in this thing. Just taking a proper look at the mounts on the axle, the brackets up under the cab. I have a whole pile of drawings here from M-Series 7.5 with suspension, 7.5 without suspension. And then I've got all the parts that we think we need to do this job. So yeah, I'll go through it all here now and see what problems we may run into. These dimensions, these bolt centers are good. Front to back, they're not. And on the top, they're good here, but not here, and this one doesn't even exist on the 7.5. It's literally just a square plate back here. So far, very happy. Not as many problems as I thought. This plate here, I'm gonna show you later on how I'm gonna work around that, how we'll solve that one. But for right now, I'm happy to get wheels off, dismantle the existing cab mount, because I know I can make progress now. I know it can be done. I've taken all the measurements I needed to take. Like I said, there's a slight issue where it bolts onto the top of the axle. The hole centers here. We'll work our way around that very easily, I think. And there's a couple of differences up here on top, which is also no big deal. The most important things here were that distance from the bottom. From the bottom of that L bracket to the bottom of that plate was a very crucial measurement in this. Because if that wasn't within the measurement I needed it to be, I would have to go looking for a different spring, or I would have to extend this leg here that comes up, or I'd have to drop this. It would just make it so much more complicated. So after taking the measurements that I have, I'm pleased with how it should look. Take 2 or 3, or yeah, this camera thing is going to take a little bit of getting used to. Very new to me, kind of struggling a little bit with wanting to just do the job, get the work done, and trying to keep the interest in documenting it and taking the footage for you guys if someday I decide to turn this into a video and release it or whatever. So this is just a little bit of a clip in between. Next is probably a little time lapse, wheel off, and start fitting up the first of the hardware to see how it works out. the original mounting taken off. That's the original base plate there. Just stick this light up. That's the original base plate. That's the original CAD mount and rubber and some of the hardware there. So in order to make this work, luckily this base plate has got 6-inch hole centers spun the other way, and the 6-inch hole center was actually bringing the plate this side, but I just lifted it, spun it around, dropped it down again, and I think it leaves me in the proper position at the back here now. Like I said, this is just a work in progress. Gonna have to see how it goes, but so far so good. That should work. Underneath here, this carrier, we're gonna have to bore holes in this because the L bracket that carries the strut here is bolted to the side of the stabilizer mount. So that has to come off at the very minimum and have holes bored in the side of it. Not sure how well you can see that. The bridge on the axle has got 200mm hole centers. So regardless, I was going to have to either make an adapter plate or cut this off, the new mount, cut it here and weld it on to my original base plate. But I'm going to try and do it in a way that it sandwiches this plate, and I use these 150mm center holes back here. Just threw this in here to see how we're lining up. The bottom will work okay. Like I said already, I have to sandwich that plate in there. It's only about not even a half an inch in the difference. Hopefully that won't affect me too much. The first major thing I'm gonna have to do here is cut off these two eyes for hinging the cab. And I'm gonna have to extend this plate back as well, just so that it carries this a bit better. Swept those clean off with the grinder. So now I'm going to clamp this plate here to this top plate and see where that leaves us. I'm not sure if I'm better off to weld this plate directly to the 2-inch tubing on the cab or bolt up to this plate, because if I cut that off and actually weld that plate and put a gusset back here to strengthen it, that would make up for the extra plate at the bottom with my height. Just on two of the brackets for the lower, you won't hear me there now with the drill. Two of these brackets for the lower mount, I'm just drilling them out, putting in a larger bolt, just because of the hardware that I have here and a couple of spacers and stuff that I have to put in. I'll show you all that later. I'm going from 14mm up to a 16mm, and it'll be stronger as well. So I'll show you this in action here. two of those drilled out. That's the two of those drilled out now to a larger size. Like I said, it's going to work better for me to put in M16 bolts because I have bushings that I need to use for spacers on the lower mount for the shock, which I'll show you later on. This is the bracket I was drilling out to a larger size. This is the M16 bolt I was talking about. And I'm going to have to use these two bushings here. I think these bolts might be a bit short, but it's okay for marking out. That bracket has to go on the link arm underneath. Something like that. I have it marked for distance and all of that. So I need to mark this and bore this now as well. I've seen on the M series that I was looking at, comparing all of these suspension parts to, and it has holes drilled in these already. They actually come now with these ready to go with holes drilled on both sides, so you can flip them or turn them or adjust them or do whatever you want, and there's a hole drilled either side for that lower mount. All right, this is what it's going to look like under the tractor. I have to keep a space because of the way this runs into this. So I overbored this now by a couple of mil. It was for M14 bolts, now it's for M16. I think it's going to be a lot stronger anyway. I'm putting spacers in. I'm going to use these decent for an M16 bolt as well, so I'm going to cut them to suit this gap, and then you're left with your two nuts on the inside. Should be neat and tidy. Had to purchase a mag mount to actually get this done properly, because you wouldn't get into a machine shop anywhere these days over the Christmas holidays. So I had to bore those two, go up a size here, and now cut these bushings. And it's all basically because the way this runs into this here. It's actually better to have it spaced out like this. It keeps the shock straight. So that's the latest.